right, you guys, so we are rounding decimals. If you're following along in McGraw-Hill, we are just beginning chapter 5. This whole chapter is working with decimals. And so we're going to start with something a little bit easy. We're going to start with the decimal 2.8. And if they tell you to round this number to the nearest whole number, remember a whole number doesn't have a decimal. It's just a whole. But I have a 2 as my whole, but I have a 0.8 on top of it, so I need to round it. So here's how you're going to do this. This is what I recommend every time when you're rounding decimals, especially if you're just starting. So take the number that is in the ones place, which is a 2, and start with that as your first number on your number line. And then what is 1 plus 2? What's the next whole number? It would be a 3, right, or 3.0. And now I want you to plot where 2.8 would be. So just like on a number line, you're going to go up. So this would be 2.1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And let's label it 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, 2.5, 2.6, 2.7, 2.8. So it's right here. And I'm going to plot it for you. So if they say round this decimal to the nearest whole number, here are my two whole numbers. Which one is it closest to? Is it closer to 2 or 3? Well, if you just eyeball it, you should see that it's closer to 3, but let's prove it. How many steps does it take to get to the 3? It takes 1, 2. Only takes 2 more places to get to the 3. How many places does it take to get over to the 2? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 spaces. It is way closer to the 3, so we would say that 2.8 rounds to a 3, and that is the whole number. That is the decimal rounded to the nearest whole number. So again, what we did is we took the number in the ones place and listed that as our first whole number, add 1 to create the other whole number, and then plot your decimal and figure out what whole number it's closest to. Please use a number line. It will definitely help you. Now let's see what they want what we need to do when they want us to round to a certain place. So we just did one example of rounding to a whole number, but what if they wanted to round it to the tenths, hundredths, or thousandths place? So let's say I have the number 46 and 73 hundredths. And let's say they say round it to the nearest tenths, okay? So whatever place they want you to round it to, circle it, underline it. I would probably underline it actually. So we're going to underline it, and it's a 7. So you need to have your place value chart out to help you. This 7 is in the tenths place. So what they want me to do is they want me to round this 7. This 7 is either going to stay the same or it's going to go up because of our rules. So these are the rules. If the number to the right of the tenths place is a 4 or less, we let the 7 rest. If the number to the right of the 7 is a 5 or more, you knock on the door and you round up. So let's see what it is. The number to the right of the 7 is a 3. So what scenario does that fall under? It falls under this one. It is a lesser number than 4, so you let it rest. That means that the 7 stays, and then everything to the right of it turns into a 0. So this now is 46.7b. Or you could write it as 46.7. We get rid of that 3 because that 3 told us how to round or what to do with that 7. So this would round to 46 and 7 tenths. Let's do another one. Let's do another one that is a tenths place. What if I had 98 and 65 hundredths? Okay, and they said round to the nearest tenth. So first step, underline the digit that's sitting in the tenth spot. Look to the right. Which scenario is it? And that's going to tell us what to do with that 6, because that's the digit that we're working with. We're either going to round it or it's going to stay the same. So is it 4 or less, or is it 5 or more? It's a 5. So because it's a 5, we knock on that door and we bump the 6 up to a 7. It goes up 1. So now it's 98.7, and we get rid of the 5 because that's what we got rid of as we rounded the tenths place. So this rounds to 98 and 7 tenths. All right, let's do one where we're rounding to the hundredths, nearest hundredths. What if I had 4 and 652? Okay, so underline the number that's in the hundredths place. It's a 5. Look to the right. Remember, the 2, the number sitting next to this spot is the number that tells us how to round the 5, okay? That's why you always want to underline it so we don't get confused. You underline the digit, hundredths, and you look to the right. Is the 2 4 or less or 5 or more? It is 4 or less, so we let the 5 rest. The 5 stays, so it becomes 4.65, and we get rid of the 2. Let's do another one. What if I had 1 and 679? Underline the hundredths place, which happens to be a 7, and look to the right. Is this 9 4 or less or 5 or more? It's 5 or more, so you knock on the door. That means my 7 is going to round up. So I have a 1.6, and then 1 more than 7 is an 8, and I get rid of that last digit. And so this rounds to 1 and 68 hundredths. All right, now let's go ahead and do one. What if I rounded to the nearest ones place? What if I had a 4 and 5 tenths? Okay, so what digit is sitting in the ones place? It's a 4. Look to the right. Is this 4 or less, or is it 5 or more? It's a 5, so it's 5 or more, which means I need to knock on the door, and the number sitting in the ones place goes up 1. So this 4.5 rounds to a 5. Let's do another one. What if I had 26 and 32 hundredths? But I still want to round the ones place. So go ahead and underline the digit in the ones, which happens to be this 6 right here. Look to the right. That digit needs to relate to this one or this one. It's a 3. So it's 4 or less, which means we let the 6 rest. So it just becomes 26, and everything to the right goes away. All right, you guys, so those are some examples of how to round decimals. I hope that helps you out, and please be sure to check out my other lessons on working with decimals.